Hello everyone, I'm Doug Anderson, Artistic Director of the Opera Company of Middlebury. I think many of you know that we had planned a very ambitious season for our 17th season. Tchaikovsky's epic Maid of Orleans, based on the story of Joan of Arc, and Leonard Bernstein's glittering comedy Candide. But this theater, our home, Town Hall Theater, has been closed because of the pandemic since February, and we were forced to postpone those two productions. We do want you to know that it's fully our intention in the coming year, should the virus allow, that we're going to bring back and produce those two productions, and we're really looking forward to it. But for now, we've turned to something that many opera companies are doing right now, and that is to explore online productions, video productions, socially distanced productions. And when we looked around for something to do as we begin to explore this new medium, we had two criteria. One was that it be short. If we're going to hone our skills in this brand new world, brand new universe, we wanted something we could really fuss over. So we were looking for a short opera, and tonight's opera is only 10 minutes long, but I think you'll agree it packs a wallop. And we were also looking for an opera that would somehow speak to the current national conversation about race and inequality. And we found the perfect piece, completing the picture, first produced by Utah Opera just a year ago, written by Michael Ching and Victoria Panella Bourns. It concerns the 20,000 Chinese worker who finished the western leg of the Transcontinental Railroad back in the mid-1800s, and then were promptly left out of history. It's a wonderful piece. I think it's a fascinating story, and I think you're going to enjoy learning about it tonight. Let me just say a few things about video. We're firmly of the opinion here at the Opera Company of Middlebury that simply aiming a camera at some singers is not enough if you're going to do a video production. You've got to explore the strengths of this new medium. What can it do? How can it enhance our storytelling? And so the first thing we did was hire a videographer, Tim Joy, who happens to live in the area, and he's a genius, and he's taught us so much about how we can use video, not just recording singers, but using the visual qualities and the visual opportunities that video brings to us. So we're actually learning a lot, and we're kind of falling in love with the medium. So for us right now, going online doesn't seem to be a problem. It seems to be a great opportunity to tell opera stories in a completely different way. And I think we've produced something that is marvelous, not in spite of the fact that it's online, but because it's online, and because Tim and everybody on this creative team have come up with brand new ways to tell the operatic story. So we're very excited about what you're going to see tonight. We're also excited that we're able to hire some of our best singers, people who've worked with us for such a long time: Leroy Davis, Emily Michiko Jensen, James Flora, Olga Perez Flora. These are people who've worked with a long time. As I'm fond of saying, it's always difficult, even in the best of times, to be a performing artist. But in a pandemic, it's virtually impossible. And we here at OCM, we're committed to producing as much as possible and giving performance opportunities and paychecks to artists as much as possible. We're also able to hire our principal guest conductor, Michael Sakir, and our marvelous pianist who's been with us for many years in Montpelier, Mary Jane Austin. So if you support that idea of continuing production, even in a pandemic, and giving work, exciting work, to artists, I hope you'll consider making a donation after seeing the show tonight. There will be a button, a link you can go to after the show to make a donation. And if you can't find that at any time, you can always just type in Opera Company of Middlebury. It'll take you to our website, and you can make a donation to help support this work. I also want to mention that there are two, what I'm calling, bonus tracks tonight. Two extras that you can link to after you see the opera. The first is a conversation with Professor David Bain, who teaches at Middlebury College. And just so happens that David has written a significant book on the making of the Transcontinental Railroad called Empire Express. And he sat down for an interview with Middlebury College student Sabian Edward, and they had a marvelous conversation that takes you a little deeper into the history of this piece. I highly recommend it. And another bonus track is that, as I say, there's this national conversation about race and inequality right now, and that now is filtered into opera companies. You might have read about this, especially since certain singers of color have come forward with the problems and the obstacles they have being singers of color in what is thought of as a kind of elitist art form. It's a fascinating conversation we're having about diversity in administrations, in casts, in orchestras. And we wanted to enter that conversation, and it occurred to me maybe a great way to do it would be to simply have a conversation with the cast you see tonight in this show. This is a diverse cast. These are people who are out there in the opera world. And I wanted to ask them about what challenges, what problems, what issues they have found as singers of color. And we sat down for a Zoom meeting, and it's a fascinating conversation. I highly recommend it, and it's one of the things you can link on after the show tonight. Finally, this is an experiment. We've never done anything like this as a company. We're very pleased with the results, but we need your input. We need your feedback. We want to hear what worked for you, what didn't work for you. If seeing an opera like this, in this highly visual way, inspires you to other kinds of operas, other operas we might use these kind of techniques for. Anyway, I encourage you to send me an email after you've seen this and just tell me what you thought about it. It's very easy to send me an email. It's 2 letters, AD, as in artistic director. So that's ad@townhalltheater.org. ad@townhalltheater.org. And we really are looking forward to your feedback and your input as we continue to work in video in the coming months and perhaps even in the coming years. We're very proud of this. It's unlike anything we've ever done. I think it's going to be unlike any opera you've ever seen. And it's a real pleasure to bring you Completing the Picture.
With a golden spike and a laurel tide, east and westward joined, we celebrate what they did back then in 1869. No more covered wagons on the trails, no more trips around Cape Horn, through plains and deserts and mountains high. The east and west were joined. The east and west were joined.
20,000 Chinese workers labored on the western portion of the Transcontinental Railroad, making up 90% of the workforce. The famous photograph celebrates the completion of the work at Promontory, Utah in 1869. And yet, there isn't a single Chinese face in the photograph. The work was brutal and dangerous, work most white settlers simply refused to do. The influx of Chinese workers stirred up vehement anti-Chinese sentiment. They were shunned and discriminated against, until it became clear that the railroad could not be completed without them.
They made a strange parade, a strange parade. Mongol features, conical hats, hair shaven down the sides, a long pigtail,
Sometimes to the ground.
identical outfits,
Like a scroll.
shin-length trousers, bare-footed wooden shoes. They look so small,
So weak.
too small,
The Xanthus children of the flowery land, looking like a line of ants.
a strange language, like crows chattering.
Maybe he's just trying to say hello. Ni hao.
The Chinese were given the most dangerous work and were paid less than the white workers. No money was given for food. In the High Sierra, they endured the 2 worst winters on record, sometimes living in caverns dug beneath the snow. In the desert, temperatures could reach up to 120 degrees. Many people thought the Chinese would be too physically and emotionally weak to do the job, yet they worked diligently, at one point laying over 10 miles of track in a single day, doing all the work by hand.
Make the grade, place the ties, all by hand. Drive the spikes, join the rails, all by hand, all by hand. Fight the cold and the snow for weeks on end. In the blizzard, you can't even see your hand. For the next man, stay close, don't go wandering, or they won't find you on to spring. Tunnel into solid rock, all by hand. Drilling mountains, granite heights, all by hand, all by hand. All day long and all night too. In 3 shifts it's never ever through.
Sometimes progress was measured in inches per day.
Blasting powder, pack the holes, light the fuse, then run. Come on, let's go!
The conditions were so brutal that Chinese workers died regularly and were left behind as the rails moved forward. When the work was completed, Chinese service organizations recovered 1,200 bodies along the route and sent them home to China.
After the completion of the railroad, racial hostility increased across the country. It had a name, the Yellow Peril. Chinese were accused of stealing jobs from white workers. State and local governments passed laws denying them their civil rights, barring all immigration from China and preventing the Chinese from working on government projects. They endured extreme racial hostility and were pushed to the margins of society and history. The legal status of Chinese workers remained basically unchanged until the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965.
Don't be left out of the picture. Don't be left out of the picture. Everybody ought to be in the picture. Left out of the picture. Left out of the picture. Don't be left out of the picture. Left out of the picture. Left out of the picture. Don't be 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 left out of the picture. Be left out of the picture. Don't be left out of the picture. Don't be left out of the picture.
With the Transcontinental Railroad up and running, Congress passed an openly racist statute known as the Chinese Exclusion Act. Not long after, an appeal went out to the nation to raise funds to build the pedestal for the Statue of Liberty. A Chinese immigrant, Saum Song Bo, saw the irony, the contradiction between the statute and the statue. He wrote,
I feel that my countrymen and myself are honored in being thus appealed to as citizens in the cause of liberty. But the word liberty makes me think of the fact that this country is the land of liberty for men of all nations except the Chinese. Are we allowed to go about everywhere free from the insults, abuse, assaults, wrongs, and injuries from which men of other nationalities are free? Whether this statute against the Chinese or this statue to liberty will be the more lasting monument to the greatness of this country will be known only to future generations. Saum Song Bo.
Hello again. This production coincides with Opera Company of Middlebury's second annual fund drive. The fund drive was created to sustain and lift the level of excellence we have established in our first 17 seasons. Next spring, we fully intend to do a full production. It might be online. If we're lucky, it'll be on our stage, but either way, it will be fully produced, powerful, operatic in every way. And to make that happen, we need your support. So you'll see on your screen a donate button. We hope you'll consider making a donation today. Also want to remind you that you'll find two other links on your page. One connects to a conversation with Professor Emeritus David Bain, which will take you a little deeper into the history of the Transcontinental Railroad. And the other link connects you to a conversation we've had with the four marvelous singers you saw tonight, a conversation about race and inequality in the world of opera. Both of those are well worth your time. Thanks again for joining us, and you should know that because of an agreement with the composer, this link will stay live forever. So feel free to forward it to anyone you think might enjoy it. We'd really appreciate that. Thanks again, and we hope to see you soon.